Yeah, sorry for the delay. It was the internet connection. I was leaving, streaming the Facebook also. So I'll be talking about the ophthalmic manifestations of COVID-19. So we have had extensive presentation by Dr. Shashank, who described all the possible aspects in the pathophysiology.
David, you can make it full screen.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, you can hear you. Yeah, okay. No, full screen.
Yeah. Okay. So the first report of this pandemic or this possible condition, which is the pneumonia related to a coronavirus, was described by an ophthalmologist. So that is the connect to ophthalmology when he described it in few of his patients. Unfortunately, he passed away due to complications after contracting this disease from one of his patients. So with that note, we'll start with the introduction. The coronavirus disease was first described in China in December 2019, as we know, and it has quickly spread worldwide now, and it's become a huge public health problem all over the world. So, this novel coronavirus causes the severe acute respiratory syndrome and has been named as SARS-CoV-2, which is a member of the coronavirus family. So it is similar to its counterpart, which came in 2003-4, that is the SARS-CoV-1, which caused a similar illness. But compared to that, this binding receptor has similar pathologic features, but only 70% of it is similar to the SARS-CoV-1. So what has happened now that we need to know how it affects the eye, because more and more reports have started coming in about the ophthalmologic manifestations. So the basic pathophysiology remains the same, how the virus enters into the cells and starts replicating and then causes the systemic manifestations as detailed by Dr. Shashank. So I will start by saying that there is relatively less is known about the ophthalmic implications of the disease. But even in 2003, there are some reports where the SARS-CoV-1 virus was isolated in ocular secretions of few patients. So the potential of infection through the ocular secretions, we currently don't have definite basis for it, but it does accumulate in ocular secretions. So the possible spread could be by droplets, aerosol viral particles, or migration of the particles from the eye to the nasopharynx by the nasolacrimal duct, or even a hematogen spread through the lacrimal gland. So this is an article which was published in the British Journal of Ophthalmology in 2004, which described isolation of the SARS-CoV-1 virus in ocular secretions in patients who developed the severe acute respiratory syndrome. And this was validated by a reverse transcriptase PCR test. So in this study, they had 36 patients with probable SARS-like syndrome, and 3 patients were found to have tear samples positive. So just 3 out of 36, but still was significant. So this highlighted that the second possibility is demonstrating the ocular transmission of SARS. So can the condition be transmitted by ocular secretion? That is something which we need to look into. So given that there is a viral load in tears, the possibility is that the contact with eye or subsequent fomites related to the eye can spread the infection to the to other people. So currently, when we started researching what articles have been published about COVID-19 related to the eye, the first thing that came up was about conjunctivitis, or rather ocular chemosis, conjunctival chemosis, redness, epiphora, and certain symptoms of that sort. It did not appear like a typical viral conjunctivitis which we come across. However, only 1 to 3 people who had this coronavirus to positive PCR presented with such symptoms. So that's a very less percentage. Next thing is inflammation of the conjunctiva was first associated with the human coronavirus, as we know, back in 2004. So these people had severe acute respiratory symptoms. So what can be concluded is that patients who have a severe form of this disease are more likely to present with ocular symptoms or conjunctival symptoms. So conjunctival symptoms can be just redness, ocular irritation, foreign body sensation, tearing, or chemosis. And more common is in severely affected patients with the COVID-19. That has been validated even in COVID-19 patients and articles which have been published recently. But there has been there were no case reports right up till May or June which had any kind of visual disturbance in corona patients. So conjunctivitis, the concern is that is this redness allergy related to allergic conjunctivitis? So we need to take proper history and whether the patient has had previous episodes of conjunctivitis or allergy. So that plays a crucial role. The accompanying symptoms of coronavirus, such as fever, cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, loss of appetite, and body aches, should be a positive history to conclude that these symptoms, ocular symptoms, could be related to the coronavirus. So, unless we have these corroborative history, we cannot say that the conjunctivitis or the conjunctival findings are related to coronavirus. The other thing, next step was to detect whether ocular uh, tissue or the tears were positive for RT-PCR for COVID-19. So certain articles which were published as early as in March to the 2020, they have uh, shown that there are few patients amongst the patients that they studied who actually had a positive PCR for corona COVID-19. Also, the patients who manifested with conjunctival hyperemia, chemosis, and epiphora had a severe form of the disease. The next article here is probably the biggest article in the number of cases, which was done in published in May, and it had 535 cases, and they concluded that the conjunctival congestion related ocular symptoms were probably the initial symptoms in the early stage of the COVID-19, and frequent hand-eye contact may be the risk factor for the conjunctival congestion in these patients. So they said that screening of the patients with conjunctival congestion by ophthalmologists is advocated, and it is essential to provide eye care equipment and strengthen education on eye protection. Next, in June 2020, there was an article which was published on ocular manifestations of coronavirus. So they did a kind of a review of literature, and in that they concluded that the older age, high fever, increased neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio, and high levels of acute phase reactants seem to be a risk factor for ocular involvement. But still, we had only ocular surface involvement that was published. So now we come to ocular manifestations and clinical characteristics in children, which was published in August. Again, this study is a cross-sectional study for children hospitalized with COVID-19, and they said that onset of symptoms, including fever, cough, and ocular manifestations such as conjunctival discharge, eye rubbing, and conjunctival congestion, has been documented in pediatric age groups. And patients' systemic clinical symptoms or cough are associated with the ocular symptoms. So they go hand in hand. And the symptoms also improve as the patient systemic condition improves. So the last article in this series would be a patient with a Kawasaki-like syndrome, which is a systemic vasculitis syndrome, where there were ocular manifestations which were again related to the ocular surface. So they said that to our knowledge, this was the first report with a Kawasaki-like syndrome in an adult with COVID-19 infection. So then this channels us towards the uh, what you say the systemic vasculitis or vascular complications, although there was no vascular complication in the eye in this patient, but now we can look into what is in the posterior segment. So are there retinal findings? Yes, they are rare, but now we have sufficient reports to say that there are posterior segment findings. So what is the first report which was published about the retinal findings? So this was published in May 2020. In this, they reported retinal and OCT changes in 12 adults, which were examined around 11 to 33 days after the COVID-19 symptoms onset. Now, all the patients had fever, asthenia, and dyspnea, and 11 patients also presented with anosmia. So they had normal blood parameters at the time of ophthalmic evaluation. So this is an important aspect because we need to highlight that even asymptomatic patients can present with ophthalmic symptoms or ophthalmic manifestations. So these patients turned PCR positive subsequently, and 9 of them, and 2 of them had a positive antibody test later. So what were the findings that they found on the OCT and the fundus examination were very innocuous, but in the ganglion cell layer and in the inner plexiform layer, there were some hyper-reflective lesions which were prominently seen in the papillomacular bundle region. So these patients presented with subtle cotton wool. 4 patients presented with subtle cotton wool spots and microhemorrhages also along the retinal arcade. And this was observed on fundus examination and red 3 imaging. The visual acuity, pupillary reflexes were all normal in this patient. So this was an incidental finding during ophthalmoscopy, but yet in the retina. So next report is on retinal microangiopathy, which can be used as a biomarker for systemic vascular disease in COVID-19. So this article uh, shows that cotton wool spots or cotton wool exudates were evident in about 22% of the patients in their case series. So we all know that cotton wool spots are nothing but ischemic exoplasmic excrescences in the superficial this nerve fiber layer of the retina, and it basically indicates underlying ischemia. So cotton wool spots as a marker for vascular disease severity has been documented in other conditions like diabetes and blood pressure, but these patients did not have any of these systemic conditions, and hence they concluded that whether these could play a role for you know predicting COVID-19 related systemic vascular disease. So that is again another report which makes us think that we should look inside the eye or on the retina for signs. So this is where they showed some cotton wool spots which were seen in the superficial layers, especially in the papillomacular bundle region. So next comes to the more serious form of posterior segment involvement, and the first case was published in August, where they said there was an acute ophthalmic artery occlusion. Now this was seen in a patient who was put on a systemic anticoagulation therapy. So we still don't know whether it is directly related to the COVID, but the patient was having multiple systemic complications secondary to COVID. So controversy exists on the best management algorithm for the hypercoagulable state that was associated with COVID-19. So whether direct oral anticoagulants or low molecular weight heparin are considered appropriate at discharge. So that is an important question to prevent venous thromboembolism. So that is something which we had discussed with Dr. Shashank. So in this patient, there was a ischemic stroke and neurological complications related to COVID-19 infection. And then there was an ophthalmic artery occlusion, which was noted. So I will quickly rush to the next case because we have shortage of time. So next one is a central retinal artery occlusion. So first was an ophthalmic artery occlusion seen in a very sick patient who had multiple derangement of systemic vascular conditions or parameters. Central retinal artery occlusion secondary to COVID-19 is something which was first reported in June. So this report says that associated with the neurological symptoms and complications including stroke, hypercoagulability associated with COVID-19 has also uh, been described, and it is also denoted as sepsis-induced coagulopathy and may predispose to a spectrum of thromboembolic events. So that could lead to a central retinal artery occlusion. So this is a unique presentation where central retinal artery occlusion was noted. So this patient was documented to have COVID-19, had multiple systemic conditions like hypertension, dyslipidemia, and stable coronary artery disease, COPD. The patient went to ICU, and then after few days of being transferred out of the ICU, on the 12th day, complained of sudden onset of painless loss of vision in the right eye. And then this was diagnosed as a central retinal artery occlusion. So hypercoagulability has emerged as a major cause of morbidity and mortality in patients with COVID-19, and also can probably lead to thrombosis in other parts of the body, including the eye and the retina. So this is suspected due to the hyperinflammatory response, as Dr. Shashank was describing, due to this coronavirus. So elevated inflammatory markers like the interleukin 6, CRP, ferritin, fibrinogen, and D dimer were all observed in these patients. So this patient had like the 5 things which Dr. Shashank described, which we should probably do when we want to investigate such a patient, were all found to be elevated in this patient. The next report is about a condition called papillophlebitis. So papillophlebitis is nothing but a form of a CRVO, but it occurs in younger patients with no systemic history, systemic conditions. So here they report a possible association of papillophlebitis with the COVID-19 disease, and suspect that the inflammatory reaction and the coagulation alteration present in this patient would have possibly resulted in the papillophlebitis. So this was a 40-year-old patient, male patient, and there was a slight decrease in the sensitivity of the visual field. There was 20/20 vision to start off with. Patient had just some slight loss of sensitivity of the visual field, nothing more. On fundus examination, it showed dilated and tortuous retinal vessels with disc edema and retinal hemorrhages in the left eye. And the patient then was diagnosed with a papillophlebitis. So this is the fundus picture and the early and the late phase fundus fluorescein angiograms, along with the initial OCT where there is no macular edema, but there is edema in the peripapillary region and a small enlargement of the blind spot and few defects centrally in the field. So subsequently, after a week, the patient's vision dropped to 20/200, and there was a significant macular edema which was noted. And this was treated with intravitreal dexamethasone implant or Ozurdex, and the patient showed remarkable recovery in the macular edema subsequent to this. So you can see here the macular edema has dropped from what it was to bare minimum with a little bit of subretinal fluid about a month later, and the fundus also looks to be showing resolving papillophlebitis. So there was another article which was published in June which studied the thrombotic or thromboembolic disease due to COVID-19 and what are the implications for it for prevention, antithrombotic therapy, and follow-up. So they concluded that COVID-19 may predispose patients to arterial and venous thrombosis, and that initial series suggests that occurrence of venous thromboembolic disease in patients with COVID-19 is common. So that was the reason we could think of starting these patients on some kind of antithrombotic therapy to prevent other systemic involvement like the retina. There has also been reports about cerebral venous thrombosis associated with COVID-19. And now we'll come to a case which we saw at our hospital, which is slightly different from the initial reports, but again is something which is noteworthy. So this was a 18-year-old girl who presented with diminution of vision since 2 days. She had a history of PCOD, but she was not on any medications currently because we want to rule out that angle as well, because what she developed and what we saw subsequently was a CRVO, and this CRVO was with significant macular edema with vision 6/24 when she presented. So going to her history, this is a fundus picture at presentation. You can see this is not a papillophlebitis, but a case of CRVO without any systemic, known systemic cause or any medications, and the age was 18. So very unlikely that any other systemic condition has resulted in it, because as such CRVO is very rare to present in this age. So then we went on to, this is the OCT showing macular edema, to investigate. So then we were told that this girl's mother had developed COVID-19 couple of weeks back and was admitted to the hospital, and that she had developed symptoms for 2 or 3 days, which subsided with symptomatic therapy. And then we did her COVID-19 PCR testing, which turned out to be negative, but we were still having strong suspicion that this could be related. And we also did all the systemic investigations possible to kind of rule out other conditions, and most of them turned out to be normal. So then we decided to get an antigen test done, and then that test turned out to be positive, indicating that the patient had this contracted COVID-19 during the time of presentation of this condition. So then we treated her with intravitreal injection of an anti-VEGF, and there was resolution, as you can see in the fundus pictures after 1 month, along with the almost resolved macular edema, although the vision improved slightly from 624 to 618. We have injected her again, so we are awaiting the further follow-up. But again, this goes to say that even the patients who are asymptomatic can present with uh, retinal findings and something as serious as a CRVO. Another anecdotal report is that of a paracentral acute middle maculopathy, or PAMM, and an acute macular neuroretinopathy in two patients with a history of SARS-CoV-2 infection. So this particular condition is a rare condition, which is but it's very well documented, but never been documented with COVID-19. So here there is a focal infarction which is seen in the inner retinal layers or the outer retinal layers, depending on the involvement in the perimacular or macular region, and that leads to some kind of drop in vision with the field loss. So this has never been noticed in a patient with a COVID-19 infection. That is again something which we need to keep in mind. There was another case which has been accepted in the Indian Journal of Ophthalmology, which was shared by our colleague Dr. Jay Sheth in Mumbai. So he reported a case of a 40-year-old gentleman who presented with a vasculitis-like condition with a macular edema. It does not look like a CR view, but because the superior part of the retina is spared, but possibly vasculitis related multiple vascular or venous occlusions, including the macula, where you can see there is macular edema. Again, this patient was treated with injection Razumab or injection anti-VEGF, that is, and showed resolution of the macular edema. So lastly, retinal outcomes in COVID-19. There was a case, a letter to the editor which was published recently, and that said that possible role of some CD147 and cytokine storm in these infected patients, which can possibly lead to retinal pathologies in patients with diabetes who are not having diabetic retinopathy. That is, they may develop some vascular disease similar to diabetic retinopathy secondary to COVID-19 infection, or patients who already have a diabetic retinopathy may get worsened subsequent to this COVID-19 infection due to cytokine storm. Lastly, there was a patient which we saw at our clinic. We don't have the patient's details or the photographs, but he presented with a bilateral panuveitis with retinitis 1 month after contracting, or rather getting cured of COVID-19. Again, so this is something which makes us think that we still are at the tip of the iceberg. We really don't know how this condition is going to manifest in the eye. So possible mechanism could be the immune mediated response, which sets in, and over a period of time, even after you are recovered, can trigger something inflammatory inside the eye, like this bilateral panuveitis. So to come to the discussion, COVID-19 is now being understood. We are just beginning to understand it, and also its thromboembolic diseases affecting the multiple organs. Currently, the incidence of the venous thromboembolic phenomenon is around 25% in hospitalized ICU patients of COVID-19. And even under the anticoagulant treatment at prophylactic doses, we still see these thromboembolic phenomenon. The D dimer has been observed to be very high, as Dr. Shashank said, and a very important marker which we should all look into or ask for when we suspect a thromboembolic phenomenon involving the eye, and it generally is significantly raised in these conditions. Also, compared to interleukin 6, this D dimer marker is probably better because it is almost showing tenfold increase in these patients. So different studies have shown a strong association between this D dimer and the prognosis of the disease as well. So although the reported incidence of the ocular symptoms and positive conjunctival swabs of SARS-CoV-2 has been fairly low till date, it is important to note that the swabs from these small case series may have an insufficient tear material to detect the virus sample. So we can still not discount that the tears have significant amount of this virus being shed. But due to paucity of evidence, which is not enough, the possibility of ocular transmission we cannot be sure. But we should always err on the side of precaution, as Dr. Shashank said. We are under the high risk physician category, the ophthalmologist, including the ENT and the anesthetist and the pulmonologist. So suspected COVID-19 patients could also have experienced ocular symptoms, but they are unreported or underreported. So that is something which we should also keep in mind, because not all patients have severe enough symptoms in the eye to come and show the doctor, or probably they are suffering from some other symptoms due to COVID-19 which are far more severe to even report to an ophthalmologist. So positive history about eye redness, itching, discharge should be asked whenever these patients are presenting in emergency or when they are getting discharged, to document them. An emergency physician should also include COVID-19 in their differential diagnosis when a patient with a conjunctivitis like picture or isolated ocular signs presents to them. And regardless of whether they have ocular signs, patients should be instructed to avoid touching the eyes, nose, and mouth to prevent the viral spread. And also should be advised to discontinue contact lenses. This is something which we can stress on our patients if there is any kind of ocular symptoms or conjunctivitis-like symptoms. The AAO has recently published an article asking all contact lens wearers to consider switching to glasses due to this outbreak. And they urge that reducing contact lens use will also reduce the amount of times a patient touches the eye and can provide a physical barrier between respiratory droplets and ocular mucosa. So to conclude, the evidence base for the SARS-CoV virus disease is expanding at a phenomenal rate, and we are now much better informed on all aspects of the new virus, and the pandemic that it has caused. A wider understanding of the risks to both patients and practitioners, eye care procedures, and how these risks can be minimized, I think we have already discussed. So that is something which we have to stress at all levels. We all look forward to the advent of effective antiviral therapies and vaccines, as Dr. Shashank said, but we need to wait when they are available and when they will come into our practice. To give a take-home message, what I can say is that it is possible that contact with the eye and subsequent fomites can lead to inoculation of the virus in other persons, much in the way demonstrated by respiratory droplets. So we should always keep that in mind. Conjunctivitis is the most common ophthalmic presentation which has been reported till date, but don't discount the retinal findings which are now coming up and are being reported. So always better to dilate and look at the retina and look at the posterior segment when you are suspecting a patient with ophthalmic symptoms related to COVID. There have been numerous documented cases of deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary emboli, and large vessel ischemic strokes as a result of COVID-19 hypercoagulability. So it's just a matter of time before we start seeing these conditions in the eye as well. So this is suspected due to the hyperinflammatory response of the COVID virus. There are so many case reports which are now slowly emerging, supporting the retinal manifestations as the complications of hypercoagulability caused by the COVID-19. Most of the ophthalmic manifestations are being reported in severe cases of COVID-19, but conjunctivitis has also been reported in few as a presenting symptom. So even before the full-blown COVID-related systemic condition starts, so that can be a marker, and we can possibly treat these people early rather than after they end up in a severe form of COVID-19 related complications. It is becoming increasingly pertinent to look out for ophthalmic manifestations in COVID-19 patients because of this. And last and the most important is also important for the clinician to take all safety precautions for his own safety and also for the others. So I will end with uh, saying that medicines cure the diseases, but only doctors can cure patients. And thank you for all patient hearing.